of Fantasy Wall Street with Tony from Quick Hits. Tony, how you doing tonight, bud?
Good. How you doing, Kyle? It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too, man. I'm doing well. I am excited to uh, get this thing rolling. I love me some Wall Street.
Yeah,
So
it's a newer show on the Fantasy Football Network, but it's one of the ones that I think that I'm really beginning to enjoy. It's only our second week,
it's our second week,
but
and I love it already. So
but I do enjoy it, and gives us a little bit of time to dive into some players and really get into what's happening with their stock.
yeah, a little bit more of a deep dive compared to some of our other shows
100%.
that we're involved with. So I guess let's dive right in. We'll start with the buys. Top of your list here is Sterling Shepard.
Sterling Shepard is still under the radar. Actually, you and I were talking before we hopped on, and you were saying that he's available in one of your leagues on the waivers. So
In a 10-team league, he was available on waivers.
okay, well, I'm glad that you clarified that. But Sterling Shepard to me is a guy you want to get on your roster. He's been averaging almost a 28% target share. That's an elite target share for a wide receiver. So in his full 3 games this year, he's around that 28%. And we're seeing now that many of the other Giant receivers are banged up. Slayton is banged up. Golladay looks like he's going to miss another week. And now Kadarius Toney is also hurt. Shepard is really the only healthy receiver on that roster. Between him and Ingram, there really are many other options for Jones to throw the football. Barkley, of course, we know sprained his ankle. And Shepard is going to continue to dominate targets in New York. He was already the number one favorite target of Danny Dimes, and now I think it's going to be even a greater emphasis and focus on him in this passing game. So it's a great opportunity to try and buy him now while he still might be for sale. This guy had 14 targets last week.
That's a lot. I mean, Kadarius Toney went down kind of early with the injury, but still,
that's what you're looking at, and that's kind of your, that's your potential with someone like Sterling Shepard. So this is a no-brainer to me. If you can get Shepard, if he's on waivers, if somebody did make the mistake of dropping him, you need to get him.
Yeah, I mean, he was doing really well. Excuse me, even before all of these other guys started getting hurt. Like you said, he was a favorite target in weeks 1 and 2 before Golladay got hurt, when Slayton was playing. So probably not going to lose many targets when any of those guys start getting healthy and coming back, right?
Golladay just doesn't seem to be able to get right. I mean, he's been dealing with this now for some time. So Shepard is going to be the number one receiver in that offense.
Yeah, and they're going to be behind and throwing a lot.
Well, that certainly seems to be the case right now. Absolutely.
Yeah. Real quick, Bo Pucks, I see you. I see your question. We got these lists we need to get through and the stuff we want to get through. We'll circle back at the end and hit up chat questions. So I'm not ignoring you. I see you. We will circle back. Next up on your buy list is Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I know that one surprised you a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm probably, I try to be at least the consummate sell high, buy low guy. You're trying to find value.
And that's why this one kind of shocked me.
Yeah, you're trying to find players who maybe their value has taken a dip. Maybe owners who are a bit panicked on a player, like after week 1 and 2 with Zeke. That was a guy you wanted to target after week 1 for owners who were panicked after watching Pollard get incorporated into that running game. Yeah. And had you bought him, then you'll be in great shape. You'd be in great shape right now.
Totally.
So typically you're looking for guys, you're trying to buy players whose value is a little bit diminished because of maybe game script or play, but all the numbers kind of line up to kind of support acquiring or selling a certain guy. Derrick Henry I think is one of these few guys, and the reason why I put him on a list he's one of the few guys where you want to buy high on him. We're going to buy high as much as we can. We want stock in Derrick Henry. He has, I think, supplanted. Obviously, CMC isn't healthy, but he has supplanted CMC. This guy now, I think, sits in the tier all by himself. He is an elite running back. He has an obscene usage percentage, productivity. He is not a sell high running back. He is a buy high running back. And he isn't going anywhere, obviously, in this offense. Shows no signs of slowing down. There aren't any hidden numbers here where we might, think about moving him or trying to maximize his value. We continue to see him each and every week, 25 plus touches. This Tennessee defense is strong enough to keep Tennessee in either a positive or neutral game script, where they continue to pound the rock with Henry every chance they get. And now we're also beginning to see some utilization as a receiver out of the backfield. And that for Henry really is a game changer.
Totally.
What's that?
I said totally. They've been talking about doing it, the last 2 years, and this year they're finally doing it. And I know Henry owners are loving it.
100%. And this season alone, he's got already 9, 12, he's got 16 receptions already through 16 weeks. That's an average of almost 4 a game.
That's usually his season total.
That exactly. And I think the more they get him incorporated, especially now, it looks like Julio can't get healthy. AJ Brown is on track, but look for them to continue to keep Derrick Henry involved in that that drop off passing game, the screen pass. But it's not normal, and it's a little surprising to see Derrick Henry as a buy. But this is a guy where maybe you have an owner who has Derrick Henry, but his record is not very good, and you might be able to acquire him by giving him maybe 2 or 3 pieces, 2 or 3 players to get Henry, maybe a running back and a receiver, or maybe somebody, like I said, sees him as a sell high. I don't know who's going to see him that way, but if you have an opportunity to get Derrick Henry, the point is you want to get him.
There's always somebody that's gonna think they need to sell high every time somebody blows up. There's
that
always
does
gonna be
happen.
That seems
but
like
I think what's most likely to happen though is you have I think the more likely scenario is you have a team where maybe they've been riddled with injuries. Derrick Henry may be one of the few players they have left standing, or their record is not very good. Maybe they're 1-5, 2-3, and desperate to make a move to try and improve their team. And so you can give them a solid running back and a strong receiver to acquire Derrick Henry if you have that type of depth on your team. But the point is this is a guy that you don't have to be concerned about acquiring. You want him. He is, by all means, he's a league winner.
Yeah. He you definitely want him on your team, but make no mistake, it will cost you. All right. So next guy on our buy list, Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, Emmanuel Sanders kind of snuck onto the scene a couple of weeks ago. It's kind of interesting with Emmanuel Sanders because when we think of the Buffalo passing offense, of course, the first person we think of is Stephon Diggs, who is obviously an elite receiver. But not sure if it would surprise you to know that Emmanuel Sanders, he had the highest number of snaps and routes run against Tennessee on Monday night, 40. And this seems to be a trend in Buffalo. He also is commanding a strong target share. He had another 8 targets on Monday night. And the Bills are using him consistently as a red zone target. He had a couple of routes there in the end zone where I think one in particular where Allen missed. But this is a passing offense that you want to be a part of. Allen is right now just on fire, the number 1 quarterback, I think, in the league, especially when it comes to fantasy. And if you can get a part of this passing offense and get a part of the passing offense with the guy who has the highest number of snaps and routes run, who is a red zone target, you want to try and buy this guy before it's too late.
Yeah, it's a little bit shocking that he has higher rates than Diggs. You'd think Diggs would be out there on every play, but not working out that way.
Now, Allen seems to really look his way an awful lot.
He does. Like you said, even the other night in that game, he had a couple where he was wide open in the end zone, and Allen just didn't even see him. They had
Right.
running plays drawn up or this or that. So it was like very very interesting to see how often he goes to him and how often he does get open.
He's a savvy receiver.
Yeah. The next guy on your list is another offense that we've been touting. Get a piece of, if you can, any piece. Chris Godwin for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, people are panicked on Chris Godwin right now, especially after seeing AB, who's looking to be more of that X factor in the offense. By the way, AB, I don't know if you saw, but he does have a sprained ankle. He missed practice today. Today being Wednesday,
Yeah, I
the
saw that.
20th.
Might be a
So
get right game for
we all
Godwin
kind of
this week.
watched that game. What's that?
Might be a get right game for Godwin this week.
100%. I
They
think
play Chicago.
well, everyone saw AB post a great game and immediately started fading Godwin. So now is the time to grab him cheap. I think out of all the Tampa Bay wide receivers, Godwin sees the highest valuable volume. Of course, there's volume, and then there's volume that is more valuable than other volume. And what's interesting about Godwin is he is leading the league in red zone targets. So that's the type of volume that you want when you've got a receiver, especially. Was that?
No doubt, dude. I didn't realize
if I tell you this, I don't even tell you his name, and I say there's a receiver that you can get on a potent offense, putting up tons of points, who is leading the league in red zone targets, you'd say, I got to have that guy. Well, that guy is Chris Godwin. And his numbers are going to bounce back. He's a top 12-ish wide receiver at a bargain price right now.
Well, that's going to adjust some trade targets that I go for here in the next couple of days. I didn't. One of the leagues that I've been trying to get him in actually all year. I just acquired Mike Evans in already, so I'm like, well, maybe we can work something there still. But some of my other leagues, I'll definitely be trying to target him. Leader in red zone targets in the league, bro. Okay, yeah. See, I learned stuff on this show too. That's why I love it so much.
I'm working
it. All right, last guy on your buy list. Scary Terry McLaurin.
People are panicked on Scary Terry too.
Which is hilarious because he's such a stud and like really consistent that he has one or two bad weeks and people are freaking out.
That's just the nature of the beast. I mean, this is the world we live in when it comes to fantasy football. You see one player go off and your guy doesn't go off, and so you say, boy, I need to have that other guy, and you panic on the guy that you have. But Terry McLaurin this guy's a bona fide stud. And I think after this last week's game against the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm looking right now just to confirm, he had 8 targets. He had 4 catches for 28 yards. So he put up a little bit of a dud. And of course,
a little bit,
owners are panicked on him. Any issue with him isn't due to a lack of talent on his end. It isn't due to any sort of an injury. Any issue with him in this offense is at the quarterback position. That said, McLaurin has a 30% target share in this offense, which is, I mean, these are top elite numbers when it comes to target share, and on top of that, he accounts for almost 45% of all air yardage in Washington. So almost half of the offense in this passing game is going through Terry McLaurin, and he has a 30% target share. And the talent is there to match it. So it's not just that he has the opportunity, he has the talent to go right along with it, and it puts him into rare territory. So don't worry about Terry McLaurin after a couple of down games. He is a top-end wide receiver 1, and if you can acquire him after this game against Kansas City, you go and you do it.
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's just a recipe for, stud numbers for sure. It's funny. I actually took your advice from last week's while we're on the buy list before we switch over, and went and bought a couple of receivers that you had on last week's list with Ridley and Keenan Allen in a couple of leagues. So, see, I'm learning on here too. It helps me as well. I know you hate that because we're nemesis in a league, but
Well, I appreciate that.
it's still it's helping me in some of these other leagues too. So, all right, so let's switch gears a little bit and go over here to the sell list. Your top sell looks like Kenyan Drake.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call him my top sell, but
Yeah,
I
that's
do
just
have
who's at the
him.
top of the list that you
He's at
sent.
the
So,
top of my list. Okay, fair enough. Um, you know, he's the beneficiary here of 2 touchdowns, and people are scrambling to grab Kenyan Drake. But these is what I was talking about with Derrick Henry. This is kind of like a mirage. He's
yeah,
not going to maintain that efficiency. He had 4 carries and he had 2 targets and 2 catches. He had 6 touches and he
six
had 2
touches and two
touchdowns.
touchdowns. that's
So
that's
posted 2
super
catches for
efficient.
30,
That's hyper efficient.
hyper efficient, 2 catches, 39 yards, 4 carries for 34 yards. Um, and so it's just not sustainable. Um, 6 touches turned into 20 points. That doesn't ordinarily happen, and you cannot
Never.
expect that to happen on a weekly basis. So I think you sell them high now in your run. Jacobs owns this backfield.
Yeah.
And you just cannot expect this type of fantasy output on such a little involvement. Now, the only thing I will say about Kenyan Drake is that they do seem to be um, kind of intentional about wanting to get him more involved in the offense. And Josh Jacobs has shown us kind of a track record of getting banged up. I think with his running style, the way that he runs, he's a very hard downhill runner. He does not avoid contact. And so if you do have Kenyan Drake, um, he is a guy who is a potential stash just because with an injury to Jacobs, he kind of slides right into an RB1 role.
Yeah.
But if you can get great value for him right now after this last week, especially going into the bye weeks, teams are looking for running backs. There are a lot of guys who have been banged up, who are injured, some who are on IR, and so you might be able to move him and get something of real value back.
Yeah. I agree. I actually sold him in Redux to some poor sucker.
Yeah, I don't know how that sucker. You really took advantage of that guy.
Oh shoot. All right. The next guy on the list is actually somebody that I have in a couple of leagues. I like him, Courtland Sutton.
Yeah,
Why are we selling Courtland Sutton?
I think his days are numbered. I think Judy's return is on the horizon here. And I'm not really a fan of owning wide receivers on weak offensive teams. Most of his production seems to take place in garbage time. Um, he has had 33 targets over the past 3 weeks, which is very strong, but I don't think that continues once Judy returns. So this might be a time and opportunity to sell him high. And that's kind of what you're looking to do when you're playing fantasy Wall Street. Again, you want to try and maximize a player's value, and if you can get a return for somebody who isn't at risk of losing his target share in the coming weeks with the return of Jerry Jeudy, then it's a different story. But in this case, it's kind of an opportune time to think about moving on from Sutton and trying to see what you can get for him.
Okay, interesting. Because we had talked a little bit about it. I think it was Panic Room. We were talking about it the other night, and we were thinking maybe Judy coming back wouldn't make as big of an impact as we initially thought, with some of the rapport that Bridgewater and Sutton have built, and plus maybe would impact Noah Fant a little bit more
I
than
remember
Sutton
that's what
when
you
he comes
said.
back.
Mhm.
But I mean, I could be wrong. I
Well,
very well
we could
could be
both
wrong.
be wrong.
We don't
I
know
could
for
be wrong
sure, but
100%.
that's just my thoughts on the situation. Obviously, you've done a lot more homework, so
Well, he has strong numbers, but the strong numbers, I don't wanna call them a mirage because they're not. Like I said, they were for, uh, I remember who I said that about.
Drake.
Was that?
You just said it about Drake.
Drake, right, I just said that about Drake. Um, but again, production taking place in garbage time, strong target share without Judy in the offense. I don't know that his value is ever going to be higher than it is right now. And so it could be an opportune time to sell him
Yeah,
and to maximize his value for someone else who doesn't pose that type of risk.
that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. His value won't go up when Judy comes back, at least. So,
No.
if you're needing something else on your team, it totally makes sense uh, to go ahead and ship him for sure. Um, I like I like how you sent this one to me. Instead of just listing out the players, you just said Bengals wide receivers, all of them, ship them
I'm
all.
selling I'm selling Bengals wide receivers. And Chase was on our last week. Now, Chase, I said, is a sell candidate, but we're selling high on him and we're demanding something high back.
Right.
So, we're not just selling guys for the sake of selling them. We want to really kind of leverage their value and get something of greater value in return moving forward. So this I just so many concerns about this Bengals offense moving forward. They have a brutal schedule, a horrible offensive line. We also are seeing now Mixon starting to get healthy. And so this is not a great formula for success in the Cincinnati Bengals passing game. This is really the time to move on from Bengals receivers, Higgins, Chase, and Boyd. So I don't need to get into each one specifically. I just do not like them moving forward based on their schedule, the O-line, Mixon's health, and I don't think you're ever going to see their value any higher than you see it right now. Because I think they're all going to come crashing down with this game on Sunday versus Baltimore.
Yeah, and I'm very sad because out of all 11 of my leagues, I have one league where I have one of them, and it's Higgins. And I was so excited because I'm pretty weak at receiver in that league, and I was like, all right, Higgins is coming back. And he just hadn't done it, and it's fixing to get worse. And I'm just like, crap, I waited all that time, and now it's just like
Well, look,
worthless.
like we said, I don't have a crystal ball. And so maybe one or more of these guys do go off on Sunday. And if you're able to get a good game out of Higgins, don't hold them and say, okay, this is what I'm going to expect moving forward. That's really, I think, a time to try and sell.
Yeah, you gotta pray for a big game so you can get rid of them.
I mean, yeah.
You do that with a lot of guys over the course of a season. Honestly, there's
Well,
um,
that's playing the stock market with them.
yeah, for sure. So then you got Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt.
Yeah,
Shipping them.
I'm shipping them. I think. Well, Chubb, first of all, just is not being utilized whatsoever in the passing game. So although he is one of the best running backs in the NFL, in fantasy, he is mostly touchdown dependent. And I'm really, really concerned about the calf injuries because these things can linger for months.
And they're
They
plaguing the
they
league right
just
now.
they're plaguing the league and they just do not seem to go away. Hunt's calf strain definitely seems to be more severe. They did put Hunt onto IR, but with the calf strains, with not being utilized in the passing game, Baker now with the injured shoulder, I'm just not interested in dealing with this. And so if you can flip Chubb now while he's injured, even and get great value for him from an owner who maybe isn't fully aware of what's happening, this is a time to consider that, because Chubb still does have a kind of a ring to it. He still has
he's still an
value.
elite household name. Like, you'll still be able to get something for him with somebody that has maybe some depth and can afford to wait for him to come back.
Right. Yeah. Well, very possible. But he just, based on how he's utilized in that offense, I'm curious to see what happens tomorrow night with Dearness Johnson, and maybe if they incorporate some other players into that passing game coming out of the backfield. But they certainly don't want to seem to use Chubb in that role.
Yeah, they got like you said, Dearness Johnson, and then Felton, I guess, is gonna possibly be the receiving back out of there. So I'll be interested to see how they do and see if they were worth all the waiver claims that were set on them this week
Right.
across the country.
By the way, Cleveland they've got Denver and Pittsburgh the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, those are rough.
Which is a brutal schedule for a running back. So, don't expect much out of this running game is where I'm getting at over the next couple of weeks. So, like I said, this might be the time to move on from Chubb.
Yeah. Because even if Chubb comes back after this week, then he's got Pittsburgh and a bye. So it's like he's not going to come back and score a ton of points against Pittsburgh. And then with a bye, then he'll be harder to sell at that point if he comes back and flops against Pitt. All right, so the last guy on your sell list is actually a repeat from last week, Cordarrelle Patterson. We're emphasizing getting rid of Cordarrelle Patterson.
We are emphasizing it. This is just a reminder. Ridley is back. Pitts is on track. He has a limited snap share, limited volume. I'm still selling Patterson if I got him. I did add another running back to the list that I did not get over to you. So let me kind of, if I could just.
We're gonna improv. Let's go.
We're gonna improv if you're good with that.
I'm
the other running back, because I'm reading different things about this guy, and I want to kind of tackle him very quickly, and we'll move on from him, and that's Damien Harris. He has a great matchup this week against the lowly Jets, and so I would probably hold on to him this week if you have him. But after this week, you need to sell. You need to cut. Yeah, you need to cut bait with Damien Harris. He is very, very, very largely a touchdown-dependent running back. He had a nationally televised game against the Cowboys. There was a game of the week. Everyone watched New England pound the football with Harris. He's averaged 16 carries the last 2 games. But you're also beginning to see New England open up that playbook a little bit more for Mac Jones. And I think Belichick, I don't trust Belichick. He is more of a committee approach type guy when it comes to the running back position. We're seeing Stevenson now getting more involved. His volume has increased over the past 2 weeks. And I know it's not fair to do this, but if you take the touchdowns away from Damien Harris, his numbers are very, very, very pedestrian. So he's been kind of the beneficiary here of a good schedule here last week and this week. But I'm ready to move on from him. Last week he had 14 carries for 58 yards. It's a touchdown really that kind of helped save his day. So, 18 carries for 101. So 10 points. That one touchdown, kind of really helped to put him over the top. Prior to that, you're looking at 3, 5, and 9 fantasy points. So
yeah, he's kind of Zach Moss, New England. He's not like
100%.
He doesn't score a lot of points. He gets a little bit of volume, but he's just not. But you mentioned Stevenson. Belichick notoriously doesn't typically trust rookies in his backfield. And so as the season goes, you're starting to see him now incorporating Stevenson more and more and more. And he's always been a committee guy. You're right. So, Stevenson and Damien are going to probably be 50-50 by the end of the year on backfield plays. So, yeah, I agree. Let him.
Well, Stevenson's also getting more involved in the passing game.
Right. which actually will make him probably more valuable by the end of the season than Harris. So, yeah, I agree. Let him go off against the Jets and then get rid of him if you can. In fact, I have him in a league. I'm going to try to do exactly that. So,
here's the thing, too, real quick. Stevenson had a fumble in week 1. And so Belichick,
he hates that.
he hates that. And
Nothing
so
hates
he
more than
benched
a
him for
running
3
back
weeks.
dropping the ball.
He benched him for 3 weeks. And
Yeah.
so, now he's getting back out of the doghouse. And so, yeah, Damien Harris is also, for me, another sell high candidate.
I agree. All right. Hold list is short this week. We got 2 guys on there, unless you
Yeah.
come up with another improv guy for us.
No improv on here.
Number 1, Jaylen Waddle.
Yeah. So Jaylen Waddle had a bit of a coming out party against the Jags with Tua back behind center. Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, are still a bit banged up, although I know that they did appear, or at least Devontae Parker did appear for walkthroughs today. So I'm looking to see that injury report tomorrow on Devontae Parker. But this passing offense is going to run through Jaylen Waddle. This guy was a stud at Alabama. He's going to be a stud on the Dolphins. And so I'm really looking for him to have a strong remaining season. Miami has the 3rd easiest remaining schedule in the league. So that all is very positive for Jaylen Waddle.
Plus, there's now a possibility Deshaun Watson could be throwing to him very soon.
If Deshaun Watson comes to Miami, Jaylen Waddle's value skyrockets.
Yeah.
If Waddle is throwing him the football, that's going to be a dangerous duo. Much like, I don't want to necessarily say Waddle is D-Hop, but much like, Watson and DeAndre Hopkins in Houston several years ago. So yeah, that would be a huge bonus for Jaylen Waddle. So just getting him with that potential, I think is worth it. But he's been incredibly efficient, and he's beginning to garner a larger and larger target share. So I have him as a hold. I'm not selling him based off of this game that he had against Jacksonville, because I think we're going to see this continue. I'm not necessarily going out and buying Waddle either right now, because I want to see him sustain it for a little bit before just to make sure that these numbers are legit. So if we see him do it again this week and maybe the week after, he moves into our buy category. But you're at the very least you're holding. Now, if you want to do a speculative buy with Deshaun Watson possibly coming to Miami, 100%.
I think that
I would tell Corey this, that in Dynasty, that's a whole nother story. You want to be all over Jaylen Waddle.
Yeah, for sure. And I think all of this talk and news of Deshaun Watson trade again has probably got people kind of clutching to him a little bit more than they would normally. So might cost you a little bit more now after all of that came out. But if you're going to buy him.
Yeah.
All right, so next guy on your hold list, Austin Ekeler.
It's funny how, 1 week the guy is a superstar, elite, you can't touch him, and now everyone's panicked on him.
He was the new CMC 2 weeks ago in everybody's eyes. And then this week, everybody's like, "Meh, don't want him."
I don't want Austin Ekeler.
Nothing.
How quickly the tide turns. He
People are
posted
so
less.
fickle.
It's insane. He posted less than 10 points in full PPR, but do not worry about Ekeler. He's got a favorable schedule moving forward. He's going to be heavily involved in this offense. I think just the Chargers offense unit as a whole, they had an off week. You're going to continue to ride this guy. Do not sell him.
I was going to say, the whole
you got to hold. He's a hold. He's a hold.
Yeah, the
you
whole
want to
offense
hold Ekeler.
stunk. You can't just, hold it against Ekeler.
People are not necessarily. I haven't seen people dumping him and selling him. So I don't know that he's necessarily a buy low candidate, because it's still going to be hard to acquire Ekeler. You're still going to pay premium value for him. So again, this is more for those who do own Ekeler. Hold this guy. Don't sell him.
It's funny. You hear people panicking on Ekeler, but nobody's panicking on Mike Williams. everybody's been panicking on Keenan Allen for a couple of weeks already, but nobody's panicking on Mike Williams. But they want to freak out about Austin Ekeler having a down week, and it's like, why? He's the best player in that offense. Like, why would you worry about him?
Right.
And kind of in that a little bit of that same regard, I'm actually going to throw an improv hold out there for everybody.
Do it.
Antonio Gibson. Would everybody please quit freaking out about Antonio Gibson? He's still an elite guy. He's getting a full workload. Yeah, he loses, some receiving to J.D. McKissick, but he's still the guy in that backfield. They have, good schedule, all of that. Yeah, he's got a calf issue, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be that serious. Maybe miss a game, 2 tops. Do not freak out and sell Antonio Gibson.
I would agree with that. I would add to that though that if you have a chance to grab McKissick, who's the other backup?
Patterson, yeah.
Yeah, I would grab one or both of those just to kind of handcuff to cover yourself. But expect him. He did miss practice today, which we expected. He's been missing these Wednesday practices, just get an extra day of healing.
Yeah.
Look to see the injury report over the next 2 days. But I agree with you. Do not panic on Gibson. You definitely want to hold him. At the same time, and that's why I like you putting him in the hold category. I'm not necessarily going out and buying shares in him either. I do want to see how this thing plays out a little bit. But I do own an Antonio Gibson in a couple of leagues, so I'm not selling this guy.
Yeah. All right. Well, that does it for our buy, sell, and hold lists. Unless you can think of anybody else that you wanted to discuss. And if not, we can jump over here. We got a couple of questions in the chat we can answer real quick before we wrap. Did you have anybody else you wanted to discuss as far as buy, sell, or hold?
No. I'm good.
Okay. Then let's jump over here. Bo Pucks had a question. Would you trade Gibson and Tim Patrick for Barkley? And if I remember right from yesterday, from our Boom Bust stream, he was in there. And Gibson and CEH, and then I think a couple of Khalil Herbert and somebody else like that, a couple of those type of guys were his only running backs. And then he was really heavy, really deep at receiver.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, I guess, well, let's see. I don't know if that's the same lineup he posted above. Yeah, it is. So he has Jefferson, Ridley, and Brown at receiver, but Gibson, CEH, Jamal Williams, Alex Collins, Khalil Herbert. So not great at receiver. He's got studs backwards. He's studs at receiver, not good at running back. Does it make sense for him with those running backs to trade Gibson and Tim Patrick for Barkley? I mean, both running backs are hurt, but Gibson will probably be back sooner, I would think, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to know what his record is and whether or not he could make it another week without a starting running back. Who would he start if he trades Gibson?
Let's see. Let me find it again. Some combination of Jamal Williams, Alex Collins, and Khalil Herbert.
Yeah, well, at least they're starters. I mean, he could.
So it's doable.
Yeah.
If you can afford to wait on Barkley, then I think you make the move.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much time I thought from what I read, it wasn't not going to be long term. It was going to be short term, and they were expecting Barkley back. I will say that I do like, as much as we were just talking about Gibson, I do like Barkley significantly more than I like Gibson.
Yeah.
And if Barkley can come in and stay healthy, then this is the type of trade I would make. I would acquire Barkley. This is the type of guy you can get on your roster, and with his volume and his usage, he could be a league winner going down the stretch. So I do like Barkley an awful lot. He seems to be healthy. He has a great, once we hit week 12, his schedule is tremendous. Philly, Miami, Chargers, Dallas, Philly. He's got just a great fantasy schedule for fantasy running backs. So it's just if you can bridge that gap, which it sounds like he should be able to do with
Yeah.
even just Alec Collins and Herbert. So yeah, I think I would pull the trigger on that.
Which is funny to think about because I was watching that game when Barkley got hurt and his ankle looked so bad.
Yeah,
Like he looked like he was going to be out for a month or more, and now they're talking about he could be back fairly quickly. Him and Gibson might be back around the same time, actually. So I would say, yeah, go ahead and grab Barkley there.
yeah.
Okay, Mike. He says, oh, he got a trade alert. I guess he got CMC for CD Lamb and Miles Sanders, which is pretty good.
Acquire CMC.
That's what it looks like. Got CMC for CD Lamb and Miles Sanders. So um, that's pretty damn good. And then he asked Tony Pollard or AJ Dillon for the rest of the season. I'm gonna go with Pollard, just because they intentionally want to run the ball so much in Dallas, and he's a
Yeah.
big part of that this year. And their schedule's going to be better, I think.
So yeah, so I would agree with you on Pollard, for maybe for slightly different reasons. Like standalone value, I think Pollard has more. Dylan is not going to supplant Aaron Jones, and Aaron Jones is not going to lose control of the volume in Green Bay. So
Neither
Pollard
is
has,
Zeke
I
in
think,
Dallas.
was that?
Neither is Zeke in Dallas.
No, no,
That's
no,
funny.
no. But Pollard does, I think, have some standalone value. I
He
think
does.
the difference for me is that Pollard, we know, will be a for sure RB1 if anything happens to Zeke. I'm not quite sure what AJ Dillon will be, because a lot of what Jones does is, yards after the catch. They utilize him a lot in that passing game. He's just a tremendous talent. You can see a clear difference between him and AJ Dillon. And just because AJ Dillon would get the starting job in place of Aaron Jones, if something should happen to him, doesn't mean that he's going to produce in that offense. Where Tony Pollard, we know, will produce. He has one of, if not the best offensive lines in the league. That offense is stacked, and they use him all over the place, running the football, catching the football. So I would much prefer to have Tony Pollard. I think he is a better cuff, and again, does have some standalone value.
Yeah. Damon the Beast says start Allen Robinson or AJ Green. I'm going Allen Robinson. Even with Fields and that offense and stuff, I still feel like he has a better shot for points than AJ Green.
Yeah. Oh boy.
But
Green's
it's
been coming on a
closer than
little bit.
it's closer than you'd think.
Yeah, crazy that it would be, right?
Yeah. With Ertz coming in and I don't know. I'm not feeling real good about AJ Green. Not feeling comfortable with it this week because you don't know what Ertz is gonna do.
Yeah. It's interesting because Allen Robinson is actually being dropped in leagues.
Yeah, he's on
Um,
waivers in a couple of my leagues right now.
yeah.
It's crazy.
I don't trust AJ Green. I think AJ Green, to me, has he made it through a full season in the past 5 years, 6
It's
years?
been a while. It's been a while.
They so many options there. You with D Hop obviously is the main guy, but Rondale Moore, Christian Kirk, now they picked up Ertz, and Allen Robinson is. I know that Darnell Mooney is getting some run here, but Allen Robinson is the alpha in that
Yeah.
offense, and the passing offense is going to run through him. I think I would stick with Robinson. Is he talking the rest of the season, or is he talking to start this week?
This week.
I gotcha.
Chicago plays Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I'm gonna start. I'm gonna.
AJ Green plays against Houston, but even with
Right.
that matchup disparity, I'm still sticking with Robinson. I mean, Tampa Bay's not great against the pass.
No, Houston's been surprisingly good against the pass. So, Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to stick with it with Allen Robinson as well. I'm not ready to pack it in on him yet.
Okay.
And his usage increased this past week, so
I feel like they're really trying to get him involved and get him right.
well,
Justin Fields just couldn't quite get him there this last
so
week.
I'll tell you what, this is, and let me just kind of add this too. If you just let's talk about game script for a second. I can see Arizona jumping out to a big lead in this game and it turning into a strong game for James Conner and Chase Edmonds if he plays.
Yeah.
And them not really leaning much on that passing offense. Robinson, on the other hand, Chicago is going to have to throw the football to keep pace with Tampa Bay. So I think the game script kind of lends itself more towards Allen Robinson.
Mhm.
Plus, it's a better matchup. Like I said, Houston has been better against the receivers than you think. So I'm going to go with A-Rob.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. Um, he also asked, should he drop A.J. Dillon for Rashad Bateman? He has Aaron Jones. I would not. I would hang on to A.J. Dillon to cuff with Jones there.
I would do that too.
It
Yeah,
don't
I
even
would.
matter. It don't even matter if you need a receiver. Honestly,
Yeah.
Rashad Bateman's not going to be worth picking up and using. So
No, I
it's
think.
more important to keep Dillon handcuffed with Jones right there.
Yeah, I think Bateman kind of what I call one of those Cracker Jacks players.
Mm-hmm.
You open up, you got the prize inside. You're not really quite sure what's going to be inside. You're going to get the tattoos, or you're going to get the lame little plastic, maze. So you're not really quite sure what you're going to get in Bateman. If anything happens to Aaron Jones and you drop AJ Dillon,
You're going to kick yourself.
that could tank your season.
Yeah.
You need to have AJ Dillon if anything happens to Aaron Jones. Do not drop that cuff because, again, how are you going to replace Aaron Jones?
Yeah.
And look at these guys now, guys who have CMC who don't have Hubbard, or guys who have Dalvin Cook who don't have Madison. I
Right.
mean, it's a killer.
A.J. Dillon's a top 5 handcuff in the league. Like, I mean, you got, Madison, Pollard,
Hubbard.
who's it? Huh? Hubbard.
Hubbard.
Yeah.
Well, even in Chicago, you see, Damien, you see what's going on with once Montgomery went down, you
Yeah.
need to keep this guy on
You
your
need
roster.
the guys that can come in and be low 1, high 2 running backs if the top guy gets hurt. You have to have his handcuffs. You have to. I've always been a proponent of handcuffing, and this is no different.
Yeah, agree.
All right, that looks like it for the questions, my man. So
Sounds good.
I guess let's call it a night. Yeah.
I like it. I like it.
All
Great
right. Well,
podcast. Good to see you. I enjoy walking the floors of Wall Street with you and diving into some of these players.
oh, we got one more at the buzzer, real quick. Last question: Gibson, McKissick, or Edmonds at flex? Who does Washington play? They play Green Bay.
Yeah.
So
I
McKissick,
love the Arizona running back this week.
yeah,
In that matchup against Houston. So I would put Edmonds at the top of that list. But I want to see what's going on with Gibson and McKissick. I want to see what's happening with Gibson in his practice reports, his injury report. But I think you've got to just love that matchup there in with Arizona. I think again, like we talked about earlier, with the game script, it really could lend itself towards Arizona having to lean on that running game. And Emmons and/or Connor, are going to be great plays this week.
Yeah, I agree. You want to see what happens with Gibson. If it looks like he's going to be healthy and he's going to play, I mean, you can't sit him if he's active. But I do think Edmonds is the best play there. And I
Yeah.
won't say that very often about those running backs because of the way they kind of split carries and stuff. But this week in that matchup, I agree with Tony. They're both very strong plays. So that's how I would play that for sure.
But here's the thing: keep an eye on the injury report. Edmonds did miss practice today. I know he's dealing with a shoulder injury, and also for Gibson and McKissick. So let's say by the weekend, Edmonds is not going to play, or it's looking like he's not going to be fully healthy, and then you're looking at Gibson and McKissick. Check to see what's going on with Gibson, because if Gibson does not play this Sunday, that does change McKissick's value.
Yeah.
And you can then make a stronger case where maybe you have a healthy McKissick, you have a banged up Edmonds, and maybe you kind of lean more McKissick. But you need to really see what happens through the rest of practice and the injury report.
Yeah,
You answered my question above, I'm back.
I do agree with that. There's a lot of moving parts there with these injuries, and that's more of a Sunday morning question, I feel like. But but yeah, I agree with Tony. Yeah, Bo Pucks, we did answer it earlier.
That's why you got to stick it to the podcast. You can't cash out and then come back later.
You can't be coming and going, man. But
to summarize,
if you want to summarize, I tell you what, if you want to hear the analysis of it, go back and watch it in the video. Long story short, get Barkley. So that wraps us up for tonight. That's the last question.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you everybody that came in and answered or asked questions and went along this ride with us. We had a blast. Tony, thanks for being here, buddy. We'll
you too, brother.
Catch you next week, yeah?
Sounds good. Look forward to it.
All right.
Well, guys, thanks for your support.
Night, everybody.